Hey guys, we're going to try something a little different today. I learned a new word last week. Schadenfreude. My pronunciation probably sucks. East Coast redneck, you know. But schadenfreude means basically someone who derives pleasure or gets pleasure from someone else's misery. So really this can cover a couple of different topics. You know, there's some of that in Tales from Tech Support, Malicious Compliance, Pro Revenge, things like that. It can also apply to friends. You know, you see a buddy of yours trip and fall down or something, you know, when you're teenagers, you kind of giggle and just be a general jerk. But we're going to focus mainly on people who have been jerks and then they get what's coming to them. Also, we got something new for you guys. As you may or may not have noticed, Alice isn't here right now. I sent Alice on vacation so we could try a few different things and see if we can kind of hit a sweet spot with you guys. Ta-da! I really can only do cat cam when they're in the room, but hey, one of them keeps going in and out because he thinks, I don't know if he thinks somebody's going to feed him or what, but he keeps going in and out the door, so. But Dime, which is the black one, he doesn't seem to care about the camera. I moved the camera around the other one and he thinks I'm going to hit him with the tripod. So this is Dimey. Trust me, that's not a still image. That is a live cam. Hey! One of his favorite toys. Yeah, you sort of saw it land. Anyway, figure we'll have the cat cam. What the hell? Let's read some stories. That left a bad taste in his mouth. This story is what happened to my darling husband, but I know the people involved very well, as I used to work in the same warehouse. Recently, upcoming stories from food thieves reminded me it happened in 2018. Until April this year, my husband, let's call him Mike, worked in a warehouse for a big international furniture company in southern Germany. He liked the work, even if it was hard labor carrying 150 kilogram, 330 pounds for the Americans, pieces of furniture around. Because of this, the staff turnover was pretty high. One of his colleagues, we'll name him Steve, started at the same time as my husband. They weren't friends as Mike didn't like him, but he respected him as a hard worker. Due to customers coming in all the time, the warehouse staff didn't have required breaks. They just took their lunch break when it was possible. Some used the break room with a basic kitchen, some went out to eat, or go to the supermarket on the other side of the road, or did errands in the 60 minutes they had. But either way, you had to clock out and back in. This will be relevant later. Soon they realized that brought-in lunches went missing from the fridge in the break room, as did sweets they had brought in to share and also drinks. Since it was rare that two of the workers took their break at the same time, they weren't sure who stole them. They also were not allowed to bring up a camera. So Mike and the warehouse manager decided to take matters in their own hands. Once in a while when it was slow, they decided to order food, mostly pizza, sometimes burgers, and my husband, me too, loves hot, spicy food. I'm actually pretty sure that there's no blood in him. That has to be hot sauce flowing around. Smiley face. Anyways, we have a nice assortment of powders and sauces, ranging from a little tickling to will turn your butthole in a Johnny Cash song if you don't get that surgically removed right now. Hubs, of course, had some of the sauces at work. 2 points for the Ring of Fire reference. You all know where this is headed, right? When the thefts got more and more regular, they decided to order pizza. Just Mike and the manager. The others didn't want to or had something else. The pies got delivered and smelled delicious. Miraculously, both my husband and his manager were able to take their lunch at the same time and enjoyed their pizza, but didn't finish it. Mike took out one of his sauces with a scorching 2 million Scoville. For those not familiar, regular Tabasco has about 2.5 to 5 Scoville, and distributed a generous amount on the leftovers, which blended in great with the red tomato sauce. Then they left to have a smoke and continue working. They hadn't had a chance to clock in again when Steve emerged from the break room running for the bathroom, hid in a very nice shade of red, gagging. When he came back out a few minutes later, he was white as a sheet, reeking of vomit, and left without a word to get something to drink from the supermarket. Just then, the local store's manager, boss of the warehouse manager, happened to drop by. He noticed Steve is absent and didn't clock out. That's a big no-no. What nobody knew, Steve had already 2 write-ups for being absent without clocking out. If you get 3 write-ups, Abmachung in German, For the very same reason you can be terminated without notice. When Steve returned, clutching 3 packs of milk closely to his chest, the third write-up and the termination was already printed and ready to be signed. Steve left immediately. He now works in another warehouse, where a good friend of mine is employed too. None of their food has gone missing yet. Okay, for me that was a perfect example of schadenfreude. Correct me if I'm saying that wrong. I'm getting better. I got it closer this time than I ever have, and at least I know what it means now. Yep, cat still hasn't moved. The toys moved because, well, the white cat came back in. Okay, there's the white cat. That's Nickel. Nickel's a little needy. Oh, look, you can see me in the picture. Anyway, Nickel doesn't really like having a camera around, but he's being patient right now. Told, no parking outside my house. That's my space, on a public road. A punctured tire leads to a year of long petty revenge. UK. There was a bloke who lived over the road from me. He had a little no parking sign in his front window. Keeping in mind this was a UK public road and plenty of spaces to park. I parked in front of his house because, you know, it's a public effing road. He comes out and goes bananas. That's his space and I better move it or else. I refused. Next morning the front tire's been stabbed. Fair enough. Can't prove it's him, but it was him. So, revenge time. I bought an old Ford Fiesta for £300. This was back in 1990. It was a complete shed, and genuinely it had 14 owners before me. But it was MOT'd, see below, and I taxed and insured it for virtually no money. I waited for his wife to move their car from their space and parked that bad boy right outside his house on the public road. Again, bloke comes out, goes crazy, and I just smile and say, enjoy. Left that wreck outside his place a full effing year. Tires got stabbed, windows broken, even got spray painted, kids playing in it, which enraged the bloke even more, and I just left it there. Called the scrapyard with a day left on the MOT and laughed my tits off every day. No parking that. Note 1. MOT relates to a Ministry of Transportation certificate. In the UK, every year your car needs to go through a series of tests at a certification location, read inspection garage, to ensure it's roadworthy. I think new cars, 3 years old, are exempt. The car needs to be MOT'd to have valid insurance. The certification lasts 12 months. Holy cow, that is genius. I mean, I don't usually have $300 to throw away, but if I had a neighbor like that, I'd make the sacrifice. A little overtime, deliver a pizza, whatever. I can't believe he's going to sleep through this whole thing. Revenge is a dish best served very, very, very cold. In my young 20s, I moved to a new city to try to start my career in life. Money was very tight, but I was confident I would get things up and running. In my job search, I came across a promising opportunity at a small firm. Instead of offering me the job, the owner said he would like me to come in for 2 days and work. If it was a fit, they'd hire me, and if not, they would pay for the 2 days. Money was so tight at the time that I figured taking the bus to and from the job was a luxury I couldn't afford, and walked an hour each way to get there. Money was very tight. Holy cow. I did good work both the days and worked very hard, but it wasn't a fit. The owner then tells me, I know we said we would pay you, but it's just too complicated to set up for just 2 days, so you'll just have to be happy you get the experience with us. Oh, I don't think so. The way he acted really rubbed me the wrong way. I was mad as I really needed the money, but as I was trying to find a job and figured it was not my best interest to make waves as word may get around, I was difficult. I did, however, decide that someday, some way, I would get my revenge on the owner. I did find a good job that led to a great career, but I always kept tabs on the owner, looking for the time and place to get some revenge, and even a few times considered some more juvenile methods. Just short of 20 years passed, and now I was very senior in my chosen profession, but instead of working for a small firm, I was leader in a very large national company that hired firms. As it turns out, we had a large contract come up that I was the lead executive on the procurement team in the area the firm operated in. Things have changed a bit over the years, but bidding on these contracts was at the firm's expense at the time back in the early 2000s. However, to safeguard them from wasting too much money, the bidding would be in stages. Well, sure enough, the owner and his firm put in an exploratory bid. They were not perfect for the job, but they could actually do it, so I assisted them moving to the next stage, and the next stage, and then the final stage. The easiest thing I could have done was shut them down right away and got a bit of revenge, but they were qualified, so I didn't do that. There was some risk to letting them go through to the end, though. I was the lead. It was a team decision, and to be honest, if they had the best proposal despite my thirst for revenge, I would vote for them. The proposals and presentation came in, and luckily the other firm was a bit better, and we went with them. Normally, the executive lead didn't deliver the bad news in the bid process, but I volunteered to take on the call, and that was my dose of revenge. It was fun to call the owner, who had no idea we met 20 years ago, and tell him, "We were impressed with your proposal, but it's just not the right fit. I know you must be disappointed to not get the contract, but at least you got great exposure to our process." I know I should have used his own words from 20 years ago, but I couldn't bring myself to do it. The firm must have done about 200 hours of work on their proposal, so I figured that was payback for my 16 hours with 20 years of interest. Sounds perfect to me. We all deserve a little bit of petty revenge, and yours wasn't that petty. You worked for 2 whole days and he just decided he was going to stiff you, so F him. Yep, cat's still there. I had to go find a job once doing carpentry. At the time we were framing houses, so, putting up the main framing structure. And the guy that ran the crew was a total jerk. I mean, he owned the framing company. Anyway, one of my coworkers was only there maybe a week before I started, and they just weren't getting along. They were always butting heads on things. And honestly, the coworker was right. He knew what he was doing. He knew his way around blueprints, how to frame the structure, how to lay it out, how to do things right and proper, and in a timely manner. But the boss just, there was some reason he didn't like him. I don't know if it was because this guy was smarter or, better at his job or what. And the boss decided to let him go, and he wasn't going to pay him for the 2 weeks that he worked, because I had been there with him for a week. So he worked for 2 weeks, and it was a every other week pay schedule. He decided he wasn't going to pay him for it. And I was up on the upper floors framing some walls, and I started hearing smashing sounds. It wasn't really a glass smashing sound, just smashing in general. And all of us on the crew walked to the outside wall to look over the edge, and we looked down at where all the vehicles were parked, and sure enough, coworker decided he was going to take his 2 weeks payout on the boss's vehicle with a framing hammer. At that time, everybody liked to show off and use the biggest, longest handled hammer they could for framing. Really before nail guns became real prevalent. Now I feel old. He took about 2 weeks worth of pay out of that guy's side windows and some body panels. Schadenfreude. Dirty, dirty little lunch thief. This took place when I was still a teen, fresh out of university, working directly under an engineer. The office I was doing my 4,000 hours in was fairly large. 5 floors of a large office building. A Toronto construction firm. Well, I was lazy and always picked up a lunch from the Whole Foods, usually sushi. On my way to work, my floor had its own break room and fridge, and for the first 6 months, nothing ever went missing, until we got a batch of university office interns in, paid interns. Then wouldn't you know, 2 lunches would go missing, and it wasn't just mine. Any lunch in store packing was gone, if there was a name on it or not. Well, after 2 weeks of our lunches just walking away, we're all getting issued. I think he means ticked. Don't F with my salmon sashimi. One of the engineers comes up with an idea and asks everyone to throw in a couple of dollars to solve the problem. The following week, he sends a text to the store-bought lunch people to meet in the break room before work, and sent a text to everyone in the office to not touch any of the packaged lunches. We meet up and he hands us this little spray bottle to spray the packaging. It was this blacklight reactive spray, glows from a black UV light, but completely undetectable otherwise. Lunch rolls around, and guess what? Every single packaged lunch is gone. And this guy brings out a blacklight and starts looking for fingerprints. He found them on the door down the hall to the elevator. Now imagine 5 of the super nerdiest engineers you've ever seen going down a hallway with a blacklight, like something from a discount CSI. Well, there's fingerprints everywhere, right up to the elevator on the buttons down to the 2nd floor. Down the hallway at this time, I figured some of the interns are nicking our lunches, but I was wrong. We followed it right to the head of the sales department's desk. Oh my God. And, well, we demanded to see his hands. They effing were glowing like crazy. Not to mention he had touched his face, so there was this glowing mess covering his face. The guy knew he was caught, and when we made an agreement not to go to HR, but to get a picture and pizza for our floor every Friday for 2 months. We stayed extra that day to print out the glowing mess that was his face. We printed at least 100 of them with the caption, "Dirty, dirty lunch thief." Those damn things went up everywhere. The bathrooms, all the entryways of the building, every office door and desk in sight. Needless to say, the lunches stopped going missing, and I was able to eat my sushi in peace. Oh my God, that was fantastic. Oh, look, it moved. I would have done the same thing, man. I mean, I probably wouldn't have been smart enough to think of the reactive die, but once it was in motion, I would have followed it to the end and embarrassed the hell out of the guy. Would you guys do that? Let me know in the comments down below. Or am I just too petty? Party every night for a year? Okay. I bought a house 4 years ago in a quiet neighborhood. I had wanted to get into that neighborhood for years. My best friend lives there. It was a couple blocks from my kid's school. It was a good neighborhood. Then the big crud hit. My neighbors across the street were forced to move at the beginning of the pandemic before the eviction moratorium was in place. They were really good neighbors. We were friendly with each other, and we were sad to see them go. So when the property owner rented to a new family, we were hoping we could cultivate a friendly relationship. Unfortunately, that was not the case. About a month after they moved in, the lockdown started, and that's when things went from 0 to 100 real quick. For the next year, every night there was a huge party. Cars down the street, music so loud you could hear it over regular house noise in every room of my house. My friend in the next cul-de-sac would text me regularly if the music he was hearing was my neighbor's. We tried to be civil. I asked politely. I brought them beer. I offered some killer 420. Eventually they threatened me and my wife, so we started calling the police. Almost every night for 4 months. We organized with the neighbors, and they started calling the police as well. Eventually the others gave up and started selling their houses because the renters were just that bad. We were still upside down on our place, so it wasn't an option for us. Eventually the police told me that I needed to stop calling and that it wasn't their issue to deal with. That I was a bigger nuisance than the renters' music. Really? It was at that time the housing market was taking off. Houses were selling in my area for $40 to $50K over appraisal value. My wife and I looked at what we needed to make so we could move and listed our home for that. In 3 days we had a handful of obscene offers to choose from. But it was the lowest offer that stood out to us the most. Their offer was a good $20K under the next lowest, but they sent a letter. I'm a sucker for a letter, especially one with a picture of a young pregnant couple and a dog. And a patrol car? Turns out the young man is a police officer, newly appointed at the local PD. And he takes his patrol car home. I knew at that point that this was the family to sell my house to. Money be damned. I moved out as the neighbors were throwing a huge party. The next day, the police moved in, and they haven't had another since. I drive by regularly on my way to my buddy's place. They just sit quietly in their garage looking bored. I make sure I honk and wave every time. That's perfect. You might have lost a little bit of profit on this deal, but, not only was it revenge, schadenfreude, watching this guy get shut down and not be able to have fun with his friends anymore, but inadvertently, you did a really good thing for a public servant. And, I'm all about that. So, you finally waking up? Anyway, guys, let me know what you think of this format, the cat cam, the stories, the, whatever. You know not to be shy. Just give me your opinions down below. And if you get a chance, if you haven't already, do me a favor. Give this video a like, subscribe to the channel, and click that little bell icon so you don't miss the fat guy with the beard telling you stories. See ya.